I think it's very important for us as citizens to try and understand when he's speaking what he actually believes in versus when he's saying things about our national security that he feels constrained to do because of the political reality that he exists in. These things he does because he has to, not because he wants to. So I'm not one of those who thinks you need to applaud the president when his back is up against the wall and he does something or says something that he wishes he weren't doing, but he does only because of political reality. And let me try and give you some examples of that, covering some of the areas that we discussed this morning and some that we'll discuss this afternoon. Let's take the fight against terrorism. One of the central arguments that the president makes is that we need to show the rest of the world, both our betters in Europe and those in the Islamic world who are tempted to a life of terrorism. We need to show, this argument goes, that in the United States we're prepared to adhere to the rule of law and that we will be true to that in all of our policies. The implication being, obviously, that everybody who came before January the 20th, 2009 didn't believe in the rule of law and wasn't being true to our basic national traditions. I think this is a very important point to address head on, because the fact is, I think that agree or disagree with the substance of the Bush administration policy post 9/11, every iota of it was conducted within a rule of law framework, consciously, because we are true to our values. The difference is how you approach the overall struggle against terrorism. The Obama administration has manifestly returned to the pre-9/11 law enforcement paradigm, which sees international terrorism as a problem akin to a wave of bank robberies, and that the way to deal with them is more FBI agents, more prosecutors, and jail facilities in Thompson, Illinois. That is the wrong paradigm. The obviously correct paradigm is that we're in a war. We didn't start the war, we didn't ask for the war, but the war has been waged against us. Saying that you believe in the war paradigm does not mean in any way that you're rejecting the rule of law. It's simply a different kind of law and a different approach. We believe as Americans that our military should adhere to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. We have doctrine and training about how our forces are supposed to behave. When they violate their doctrine and training, as happened at Abu Ghraib, we prosecute people who do that. We do operate within the rule of law as it exists in the peculiar circumstances of the war paradigm. So I think this is an extremely important point we should not be defensive about. I do not believe that anybody in the Bush administration knowingly condoned torture. I think we had lawyers who undertook the very difficult task of trying to define a poorly understood term, to tell us what the line was, and that the tactics that were approved under the label of enhanced interrogation were not deemed to be torture. So when people say, I'm against torture, I say, absolutely. Americans are against torture, but they understand that they're entitled to do what is permissible within that boundary to defend themselves. Same thing about Guantanamo Bay. This is not some illegitimate facility. This was a very hard decision for the administration to make, to deal with very undesirable people. And to show why the decision was the way it was, ask the Obama administration why 1 year in they haven't been able to close it. That is them coming to terms with political reality. But the whole conduct of Gitmo was intended to keep us within a rule of law framework and still defend ourselves against international terrorism. The arguments that are being made now about how to treat these terrorists are arguments that are based on the wrong paradigm. And it is, I think, absolutely critical that we have a full-scale national debate about whether you think terrorism is akin to bank robbery or whether you think it's akin to an attack on our country. Because I think we would win that debate hands down. And I'm happy to have it every day of the year. It's also critical in the broader struggle internationally, particularly when you consider the threat of weapons of mass destruction, nuclear, chemical, and biological. What the Bush administration did in overthrowing Saddam Hussein was to take preemptive military action against the threat to international peace and security. Now, I could give you the long version of why I think we had international legal authority to do that, but I can give you the short version. We were entitled to defend ourselves. Just yesterday, a commission appointed by the government of the Netherlands issued a 551-page report that said that the war against Saddam Hussein was illegitimate because there was no foundation in international law. All I can say is, if that's the answer, they were asking the wrong question. And this is another point I think it's critical in understanding the Obama administration. It's not far different than what John Kerry said in the 2004 election about American foreign policy having to pass the global test of legitimacy, meaning largely approval by the UN Security Council. If that's what we have to go through, we're going to be incredibly constrained, to say the least. But I think that's the way the Obama administration approaches these issues. And I think we can already see that playing out, not just in the field of terrorism, but in the field of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. We've seen, ever since the inauguration, the administration has been chasing Iran and North Korea to get them to come to the negotiating table. The president just doesn't have his hand out waiting for those fists to unclench. He's waving at them, pleading with them. Why don't you sit down with me? And the only thing that's surprising to me is that they haven't finally agreed to it, because in the field of proliferation, negotiation typically benefits the proliferator. It gives them an asset, a critical asset they need to advance their proliferation objectives, and that's time. Time gives them the opportunity, as Iran and North Korea have both demonstrated over the last 8 years, to improve both their nuclear programs and their ballistic missile programs. This is also, I think, a fundamental lesson about the role of negotiation in international affairs and the role of negotiation in a multilateral system as the Obama administration envisions it. You know, they would like people to believe that they have replaced a group of unilateralist cowboys who didn't believe in negotiation, who not only didn't want to negotiate with their adversaries, that didn't want to negotiate with our friends. Now, that is factually inaccurate for a lot of reasons, but it also misstates the terms of the debate. The real debate is between those who see negotiation internationally as the solution to 99 and 44/100% of the world's problems. That's the view I take. Versus the other side of the debate that sees negotiation as the solution to 100% of the world's problems. That's the course the Obama administration is largely pursuing. And that's why countries like Iran and North Korea don't see any incentive to come to the table, even after a year of near desperate administration efforts to get them there. If they wait a little bit more, the terms of their engagement will be even better for them. And I think this is an indication that's going to have very widespread implications, because the world understands that if the United States can't roll back the North Korean nuclear capability, and if we can't stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons, then nobody can stop proliferation.